The morning light filtered through the curtains of Zara's childhood bedroom, but she couldn't bring herself to get out of bed. Today was the day her life would change forever, and she had no say in it. At 24, she was about to marry a complete stranger, a billionaire named Marcus who lived in a world so different from hers that they might as well be from different planets. Her parents had been discussing this arrangement for months, whispering in hushed tones whenever they thought she wasn't listening. The family business was failing, debts were piling up, and this marriage was their only way out. Zara understood the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, but understanding didn't make it hurt any less. "Zara, honey, you need to start getting ready," her mother called from downstairs. There was a tremor in her voice that she was trying hard to hide. Zara stared at the wedding dress hanging on her closet door. It was beautiful, probably cost more than her family made in a year. Marcus had sent it along with explicit instructions about the ceremony. Everything had been planned without her input. She was just expected to show up and say the right words at the right time. The past few weeks had been a blur of legal documents, meetings with lawyers, and awkward phone calls with Marcus's assistant. She had only spoken to her future husband twice, and both conversations had been stiff and formal. He seemed nice enough, but there was a coldness to him that made her stomach twist with anxiety. Her younger sister Keisha knocked on the door and peeked in. "Can I come in?" Zara nodded, grateful for the company. Keisha sat on the edge of the bed and took her hand. "You don't have to do this," Keisha whispered. "We'll find another way." "What other way?" Zara asked, trying to keep the bitterness out of her voice. "Dad's diabetes medication costs a fortune. Mom needs surgery for her back. And you deserve to go to college without drowning in debt. This marriage will take care of all of that. But what about your dreams? What about art school? What about traveling the world like we always talked about?" Zara had been painting since she was a child. Her small bedroom was filled with canvases depicting everything from city streets to imaginary landscapes. Art had always been her escape, her way of making sense of the world. But dreams didn't pay medical bills or put food on the table. "Dreams are for people who can afford them," Zara said, surprised by how grown-up she sounded. The truth was she was terrified. Not just of marrying a stranger but of losing herself in the process. Marcus lived in a mansion upstate, surrounded by business associates and social obligations. What would happen to the girl who loved to paint in her pajamas and dance to music in her socks? Would she disappear entirely? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Car will arrive at 2 p.m. Please be ready. Marcus." Even his text messages were formal and distant. Zara wondered if he was as nervous as she was, or if this was just another business transaction to him. She had seen his photo in magazines, tall, handsome in a sharp-featured way, always wearing expensive suits. He looked like someone who never had to worry about anything. "I should start getting ready," Zara said, though she made no move to get up. "I'll help you," Keisha offered. "And I'll do your hair the way you like it. At least that will be something that feels like you." As her sister began to braid her hair, Zara tried to imagine what her life would be like in a few hours. She would have a new last name, a new home, and a new role to play. The thought made her feel like she was disappearing already. "Promise me something," she said to Keisha. "Promise me you'll keep painting. Even when I can't." "You're going to keep painting," Keisha said firmly. "This isn't the end of your story, Zara. It's just a new chapter." But as Zara looked at herself in the mirror, wearing a dress that cost more than her family's monthly rent, she wasn't so sure. She looked like a stranger already. The makeup artist Marcus had sent made her face look perfect but unfamiliar. The dress fit like it was made for her, which it probably was, but it felt like a costume. At exactly 2 p.m., a black car pulled up outside their small house. The driver was polite but said nothing beyond confirming her identity. As they drove through the city toward the courthouse where the ceremony would take place, Zara watched her neighborhood disappear behind them. She thought about Marcus and wondered what he was thinking right now. Was he regretting this decision? Was he nervous? Or was he simply checking items off a list, the way he probably did with every other business deal? The courthouse came into view, and Zara's heart began to race. In less than an hour she would be married to a man she barely knew, beginning a life she never chose. But as scary as it was, she knew she was doing the right thing for her family. Sometimes love meant sacrifice, even if it wasn't the kind of love story she had dreamed about as a little girl. The courthouse was smaller than Zara had expected. She had imagined something grand and imposing, but it was just a simple building with marble floors and fluorescent lights. Marcus was already there when she arrived, standing near the judge's chambers in a navy blue suit that probably cost more than her family's car. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Up close, he was even more intimidating than his photos suggested. He was tall, much taller than she had realized, with dark hair and serious brown eyes. There was something guarded about his expression, like he was constantly calculating something in his head. "You look beautiful," he said, and though the words were kind, they sounded rehearsed. "Thank you," she replied, not sure what else to say. They were joined by the judge, 2 witnesses Marcus had brought, she didn't recognize either of them, and a photographer whose presence made the whole thing feel even more surreal. This was supposed to be one of the most important days of her life, and it felt like a business meeting. The ceremony itself lasted less than 15 minutes. They exchanged simple gold bands, which Marcus had selected without consulting her, and repeated vows that felt hollow and scripted. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus leaned down to kiss her cheek, a brief, polite gesture that somehow felt more distant than if he hadn't touched her at all. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Coleman," the judge said with a smile that seemed genuine. At least someone was happy about this. Mrs. Coleman. The name felt foreign in her ears. She had been Zara Williams her entire life, and now she was someone completely different. After they signed the papers and posed for a few awkward photos, Marcus led her to his car, a sleek black sedan that was probably worth more than her parents' house. The driver held the door open for her, another reminder that she was entering a world where such things were normal. "I thought we could have dinner," Marcus said as they pulled away from the courthouse. "There's a restaurant I think you'll like." "Okay," she said, though she wasn't sure she could eat anything. Her stomach was tied in knots. The silence in the car was heavy and uncomfortable. Zara stared out the window at the city passing by, trying to process what had just happened. She was married. To this man sitting beside her, scrolling through emails on his phone like it was just another day. "I should probably call my parents," she said finally. "Let them know everything went well." "Of course," Marcus said, not looking up from his phone. "Take all the time you need." Her mother answered on the first ring. "How did it go, sweetheart?" "It was fine," Zara said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "Simple and quick, just like we planned." "And Marcus? How is he?" Zara glanced at her new husband, who was still absorbed in his phone. "He's nice. Very polite." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Marcus wasn't unkind, but there was a wall around him that she couldn't see past. He spoke to her the same way he probably spoke to his employees, respectful but distant. The restaurant Marcus had chosen was the kind of place where the servers wore white gloves and there were more forks than seemed necessary. Zara had never eaten anywhere so fancy, and she felt completely out of place in her wedding dress among all the business suits and designer handbags. "Order whatever you like," Marcus said, though he was still checking his phone every few minutes. "The salmon here is excellent." Zara ordered the salmon, not because she particularly wanted it, but because choosing something else seemed too complicated. She watched Marcus navigate the menu and wine list with ease, clearly comfortable in this environment. "Tell me about yourself," he said suddenly, setting his phone aside. "I realize we haven't had much chance to talk." It was such a strange question to ask someone you had just married. Where was she supposed to start? "I don't know what you want to know," she said honestly. "What do you like to do? What are your interests?" "I paint," she said. "Not professionally or anything. Just for fun." "That's interesting. What kind of paintings?" "All kinds, I guess. Whatever catches my eye. I like to paint people, places, sometimes just colors that make me feel something." For the first time since she had met him, Marcus looked genuinely curious. "I'd like to see your work sometime." "Maybe," she said, though she couldn't imagine him in her small bedroom looking at her amateur paintings. "I should tell you about the house," Marcus said. "It's quite large. You'll have your own wing if you prefer privacy. I travel frequently for business, so you'll have plenty of space to yourself." The way he said it made it clear that he expected her to want privacy from him. Maybe that should have been a relief, but instead it made her feel even more alone. "What about? I mean, how do you see this working?" she asked. "This marriage." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering his words carefully. "I think we can make this arrangement work for both of us. You'll have financial security and I'll have, well, what I need from this partnership." Partnership. That's what this was to him. A business arrangement with benefits for both parties. "And what is it that you need?" she asked. "Stability. The appearance of a settled life. It's important for business." So that was it. She was a prop in his professional life, a way to look more respectable to his colleagues and clients. The realization stung more than she had expected. They finished dinner in relative silence, making small talk about the food and the weather. When they were done, Marcus paid the check without looking at the total and they returned to his car. "I'll take you to the house now," he said. "Your things should already be there. I had someone move them this afternoon." The thought of strangers packing up her belongings made her feel violated somehow, but she didn't say anything. This was her life now, decisions made without her input, changes happening around her rather than with her. As they drove through the city toward his home, Zara wondered what she had gotten herself into. Marcus seemed like a decent man, but he was as much a stranger now as he had been that morning. The difference was that now she was legally bound to him, for better or worse. The house was not what Zara had expected. When Marcus had said it was large, she had pictured something grand but cold, like the mansion she had seen in movies. Instead, as they pulled through the iron gates and up the circular drive, she saw a beautiful colonial-style home with warm yellow lights glowing in the windows. It looked like a place where a family might actually live, not just a showpiece for entertaining. "It's beautiful," she said and meant it. "Thank you. I had it restored about 5 years ago. It was built in 1920 by a railroad family." Marcus led her through the front door into a spacious foyer with hardwood floors and a curved staircase. The furniture was clearly expensive but comfortable looking, and there were fresh flowers in a vase on the side table. Someone had gone to a lot of trouble to make the place feel welcoming. "Mrs. Chin is my housekeeper," Marcus explained as if reading her thoughts. "She's been with me for 3 years. She'll help you with anything you need." As if summoned by his words, an older Asian woman appeared from what must have been the kitchen. She had a kind face and was wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Mrs. Chin, this is my wife, Zara." The word, wife, sounded strange coming from his lips, like he wasn't quite used to it either. "Welcome home, Mrs. Coleman," Mrs. Chin said with a warm smile. "I've prepared the blue bedroom for you. I hope you'll be comfortable." "I'm sure I will. Thank you." "Would you like me to show you around?" Marcus asked. "Or would you prefer to rest? It's been a long day." Zara was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, but she was too curious about her new home to sleep just yet. "I'd like to see it if you don't mind." The tour took nearly half an hour. The house had 12 rooms, including a library that made Zara's heart skip a beat. The walls were lined with books from floor to ceiling, and there were comfortable reading chairs positioned near large windows that looked out onto the garden. "You can use this room whenever you like," Marcus said, noticing her interest. "I'm rarely in here myself." "You don't read?" "Mostly business journals and reports. Not much time for pleasure reading." It seemed like a sad way to live, surrounded by all these beautiful books and never having time to enjoy them. The blue bedroom Mrs. Chen had mentioned was on the second floor, at the opposite end of the hall from what was clearly Marcus's room. It was lovely, larger than her entire bedroom at home had been, with a sitting area and its own bathroom. Her clothes had been unpacked and hung in the walk-in closet, though they looked lost in the enormous space. "This is perfect," she said, running her hand along the soft blue comforter. "Thank you. I'll let you get settled. If you need anything, just ask Mrs. Chen. She's usually in the kitchen or the laundry room during the day." He turned to leave, then paused. "Zara? I know this isn't what either of us planned for our lives. But I hope we can make the best of it." After he left, Zara sat on the edge of the bed and tried to process her new reality. The room was beautiful, the house was more welcoming than she had dared to hope, and Marcus seemed to genuinely want her to be comfortable. So why did she feel so empty? She unpacked her art supplies, setting up a small easel by the window where the light would be good in the morning. It was a small act of claiming this space as her own, but it helped her feel a little more grounded. That night, she called her family to let them know she had arrived safely. "The house is incredible," she told Keisha. "I have my own library." "A whole library? Just for you?" "Well, Marcus said I could use it. He doesn't seem to read much." "What's he like? Really like, I mean?" Zara considered the question. "Polite. Distant. I think he's trying to be kind, but it's like he doesn't know how to talk to people who aren't business associates." "Maybe he's just shy?" "Maybe." But Zara didn't think shyness was the right word. Marcus carried himself with too much confidence to be shy. It was more like he had built walls around himself and didn't know how to let people in. The next morning, Zara woke up disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was. The bed was so comfortable and the room so quiet that she had slept better than she had in weeks. Sunlight was streaming through the windows, and she could hear birds singing in the garden below. Mrs. Chen had left a note on her bedside table letting her know that breakfast would be ready whenever she came downstairs, and that Marcus had already left for the office. The kitchen was warm and inviting, with a large island in the center and windows that looked out onto a herb garden. Mrs. Chin had prepared eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, and what looked like homemade muffins. "This is too much," Zara protested. "I usually just have coffee and toast." "Mr. Marcus said I should take good care of you," Mrs. Chin replied with a smile. "Besides, you're too thin. We need to put some meat on your bones." It was nice to have someone fuss over her, even if it felt a little overwhelming. At home, everyone was always too busy or too worried about money to pay much attention to whether she was eating enough. After breakfast, Zara explored the garden. It was even more beautiful than it had looked from the windows, full of flowers she couldn't name and vegetables growing in neat rows. There was a small greenhouse at the back and a pond with fish swimming lazily in circles. She spent the morning painting the garden, trying to capture the way the light filtered through the trees. It felt good to have a brush in her hand again, to lose herself in the simple act of putting color on canvas. "That's lovely." Zara jumped, startled. Marcus was standing behind her, still wearing his business suit but with his tie loosened. "I'm sorry," she said, suddenly self-conscious. "I didn't hear you come home." "Don't apologize. I'm glad to see you making yourself at home." He moved closer to look at her painting. "You're very talented." "It's just a hobby." "It's more than that. This is real skill." There was something in his voice she hadn't heard before, genuine admiration. It made her feel warm in a way she wasn't expecting. "How was your first day?" he asked. "Quiet. Mrs. Chin took good care of me." "Good. I was hoping. Would you like to have dinner together tonight? I mean, if you're not too tired." The invitation surprised her. She had assumed they would live completely separate lives. "I'd like that," she said, and realized she meant it. Maybe this arrangement didn't have to be as lonely as she had feared. Dinner that evening was different from their meal at the restaurant. Marcus had changed out of his business suit into jeans and a simple button-down shirt, and he looked younger somehow, more approachable. Mrs. Chin had prepared what she called comfort food: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans from the garden. "Mrs. Chin says you spent the morning painting," Marcus said as they ate. "The garden?" "Yes. I hope that's okay. I should have asked permission first." "You don't need permission to use your home, Zara. This is your house now too." The way he said "your home" made something flutter in her chest. She hadn't expected him to think of it that way. "Tell me about your work," she said, wanting to know more about this man she had married. "What exactly do you do?" "I buy struggling companies and turn them around. Sometimes that means restructuring, sometimes it means completely changing their business model. It's not always popular, but it usually works." "That sounds challenging." "It can be. A lot of people see me as the bad guy who comes in and changes everything they're comfortable with. But if I don't make those changes, the company fails completely and everyone loses their jobs anyway." There was something defensive in his tone, like he was used to having to justify his work. Zara wondered if that was part of why he seemed so guarded, if he was tired of people judging him before they really knew him. "It must be lonely," she said. "Always being the person who has to make the hard decisions." Marcus looked surprised, like no one had ever put it that way before. "I suppose it is. Is that why you wanted to get married?" "For companionship." He was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer. "Partly. But also because I'm tired of people assuming things about me. That I'm cold or ruthless or incapable of normal relationships." "Are you? Cold, I mean." "I don't think so. But I've been told I can be difficult to get to know." Zara could see that. Marcus spoke carefully, like he was always editing himself before the words came out. But sitting here in his kitchen, wearing casual clothes and talking about his work, he seemed more human than he had the day before. "What about you?" he asked. "Besides painting, what do you enjoy?" "Reading. Music. I love to cook, though I've never had a kitchen like this to work with." She gestured around the spacious room with its professional-grade appliances. "You're welcome to cook whenever you like." Mrs. Chun would probably enjoy the company. Over the next few days they settled into a routine. Marcus left early for work and came home around 7. They would have dinner together and talk, careful, polite conversations that stayed on safe topics like books, current events, or stories about their childhoods. Zara spent her days painting, reading in the library, and slowly getting to know Mrs. Chin, who turned out to be a wonderful storyteller with a dry sense of humor. "Mr. Marcus is different since you arrived," Mrs. Chin told her one morning as they worked together in the garden. "More relaxed." "Different how?" "He smiles more. And he's been coming home earlier. Before, he would work until 9 or 10 every night." Zara hadn't noticed that he was making an effort to come home earlier, but now that Mrs. Chen mentioned it, she realized it was true. Maybe their dinner conversations meant something to him too. A week after the wedding, Marcus surprised her by coming home with a large package. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it and see." Inside was a complete set of professional art supplies, the kind she had always dreamed of owning but could never afford. There were oil paints, watercolors, brushes of every size, canvases, and even a professional easel. "Marcus, this is too much. I can't accept this." "Why not?" "Because it must have cost a fortune and I'm just a hobbyist." "You're my wife," he said simply. "And you're not just a hobbyist. I've seen your work, remember?" That night, she called her sister to tell her about the gift. "He bought you art supplies?" Keisha squealed. "That's so romantic." "It's not romantic," Zara protested, though she felt a warm glow every time she looked at the beautiful supplies. "It's just thoughtful." "Same thing," Keisha said with a laugh. "He's paying attention to what makes you happy. That's romantic even if he doesn't realize it." Was it romantic? Zara wasn't sure. Marcus had been unfailingly polite and considerate, but there was still a careful distance between them. They were like two polite strangers sharing a house, both trying not to step on each other's toes. But then small things began to change. Marcus started asking about her paintings, genuinely interested in her process and her inspiration. He began bringing her books from the city, art books, novels he thought she might enjoy, even poetry collections. When she mentioned missing her mother's Sunday morning pancakes, Mrs. Chin mysteriously began making pancakes every Sunday. Zara found herself looking forward to their dinner conversations. Marcus was intelligent and well-read, and once he relaxed a little, he could be quite funny. He told her stories about his travels for business, about the interesting people he had met and the places he had seen. In return, she told him about her family, her dreams of traveling someday, and the stories behind some of her paintings. "I've never met anyone who sees the world the way you do," he told her one evening as they walked through the garden after dinner. "You find beauty in everything. Don't you?" "I find potential, profit margins, problems to solve. But beauty?" He shook his head. "I think I lost the ability to see that somewhere along the way." "You could learn to see it again," she said. "It's not something you lose forever." He stopped walking and looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You really believe that?" "I do." For a moment, she thought he might say something important, something that would change the careful dynamic between them. But then his phone rang and the moment was broken. As he took the call, walking ahead of her toward the house, Zara realized something had shifted. She was no longer just going through the motions of this marriage. Somewhere in the past week, she had begun to genuinely like her husband. More than like him if she was being honest with herself. The realization should have been comforting, but instead it made her nervous. Because she was starting to care about someone who had made it clear that this marriage was just a business arrangement. And caring about someone who might never care about her in return was a dangerous thing indeed. 3 weeks into their marriage, Zara was beginning to understand the rhythm of Marcus's life. He worked constantly, even at home he was always checking emails or taking phone calls. His world was one of deadlines and bottom lines, of decisions that affected hundreds of people and millions of dollars. It was no wonder he had trouble relaxing. But she was starting to see cracks in his carefully controlled exterior. Like the way he hummed under his breath when he thought no one was listening, or how he always saved the last bite of dessert for her when they shared a meal. Small things that suggested there was more to him than the business persona he showed the world. One evening, she was in the library reading when she heard him come home. Usually he would come find her for dinner, but tonight the house remained quiet. Curious, she went looking for him and found him in his study, staring at his computer screen with a frustrated expression. "Everything okay?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, startled. "Sorry, I didn't hear you. Just work problems. Anything I can help with?" "I doubt it. It's a complex acquisition deal that's falling apart." "Try me," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Sometimes talking to someone who's not involved can help you see things differently." Marcus looked skeptical, but he began to explain the situation. A family-owned manufacturing company was struggling, and Marcus's firm was trying to buy it and restructure it to save jobs. But the family was resistant to change, even though their current path would lead to bankruptcy. "They hate me before they even meet me," he said. "They think I'm some heartless corporate raider who wants to destroy their legacy." "Are you?" "No." The word came out more forcefully than she expected. "I'm trying to save their company. But they won't listen to anything I suggest because they see me as the enemy." Zara could hear the frustration in his voice and something else, hurt. This clearly mattered to him more than just a business deal. "Maybe the problem isn't what you're saying but how you're saying it," she suggested gently. What do you mean? Well, when you explain business things to me, you're very formal, professional. Maybe they need to see that you actually care about preserving what they've built, not just turning a profit. Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering her words. I do care. But showing emotion in business is usually seen as weakness. Maybe this time it would be seen as humanity. The next morning, Marcus asked if she wanted to come with him to a meeting with the family. I thought maybe having you there would help them see me as a real person, not just a suit. Zara was nervous about being put in such a position, but she could see how much this meant to him. Okay. But I don't know anything about business. You know about people. That might be more important. The meeting was at the company's headquarters, a modest building in an industrial part of town that looked like it had been there for decades. The family, 2 brothers and their elderly father, were exactly as defensive as Marcus had predicted. They spoke to him with barely concealed hostility, suspicious of every suggestion he made. But when Marcus introduced Zara, something shifted. The old man's face softened as he shook her hand. It's nice to meet the woman who got this workaholic to finally settle down, he said with a smile. Marcus tells me you've built something really special here, Zara said. 3 generations of family working together, that's rare these days. As the meeting progressed, Zara found herself asking questions about the company's history, about the products they made and the workers they employed. She wasn't trying to be strategic, she was genuinely curious about these people and what their business meant to them. Gradually, the conversation became less adversarial. The family began to open up about their fears, not just about losing money, but about losing the legacy their grandfather had built. They worried about their employees, many of whom had worked there for decades. I understand, Marcus said, and for once his voice wasn't carefully controlled. I know what it's like to watch something you care about slip away. But sometimes the only way to save something is to change it. He began to explain his plan differently this time, focusing not on profit margins and efficiency metrics, but on how the changes would preserve jobs and honor the company's tradition of quality craftsmanship. He spoke with passion about breathing new life into old businesses, about respecting the past while building for the future. By the end of the meeting, the family had agreed to consider his proposal. As they walked back to the car, Marcus was quiet. That went well, Zara said. You saved that deal, he said. They never would have listened to me if you hadn't been there. I didn't do anything special. You cared about them. And you helped me remember that this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about people. That night at dinner, Marcus seemed different, more relaxed, more open. He told her about other deals he had worked on, about the satisfaction he got from saving jobs and preserving communities. She began to understand that beneath his formal exterior was someone who genuinely wanted to help, even if he wasn't always good at showing it. Can I ask you something? She said as they finished dessert. Of course. Why did you really want to get married? I mean the real reason. Marcus set down his fork and looked at her for a long moment. Honestly, I was tired of being alone. I know that sounds pathetic coming from someone who has everything money can buy, but it doesn't sound pathetic at all. I wake up every day in this big house, go to work where everyone either wants something from me or is afraid of me, and come home to silence. I thought maybe having someone to share it with would make it feel less empty. And does it? Feel less empty? Yes, he said softly. Much less empty. Something in his tone made her heart skip a beat. They were looking at each other across the table, and for a moment the careful distance between them seemed to disappear. She saw something in his eyes that looked almost like longing. But then his phone rang, breaking the spell. He apologized and took the call, and by the time he was finished, the moment had passed. That night, as Zara lay in her bed in the blue room, she thought about the way Marcus had looked at her during dinner. There had been something vulnerable in his expression, something real and unguarded. She was falling for her husband, she realized. Despite the strange circumstances of their marriage, despite the walls he kept around himself, she was beginning to care for him deeply. The question was whether he could ever feel the same way about her, or if she would always be just a solution to his loneliness, convenient but not truly loved. The morning after their successful business meeting, Zara woke to find a note slipped under her door. Marcus's handwriting was neat and precise like everything else about him. Thank you for yesterday. You reminded me why I love what I do. It was a small gesture, but it made her smile as she got dressed. She was beginning to treasure these little moments when Marcus let his guard down, when she caught glimpses of the man behind the businessman. She found him in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the financial news on his tablet. He looked up when she entered, and she noticed he seemed more relaxed than usual. Good morning, he said. I was wondering, do you have plans today? Just painting. Why? I thought maybe you'd like to see where I work. If you're interested. The invitation surprised her. Marcus had kept his professional life completely separate from their home life, and she had assumed that was how he preferred it. I'd love to, she said. Marcus's office building was downtown, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. His office was on the 40th floor with windows that offered a stunning view of the city. It was exactly what she would have expected, sleek, modern, and somehow impersonal despite the expensive furniture and artwork. This is beautiful, she said, looking out at the view. I spend most of my time here, he said. Sometimes I forget there's a world outside these windows. He introduced her to his assistant, Jennifer, who seemed delighted to finally meet the mysterious wife she had heard about. As they toured the office, Zara noticed how Marcus's employees treated him with respect but also a certain wariness, as if they were never quite sure what to expect from him. He's different when he talks about you, Jennifer told her quietly when Marcus stepped away to take a phone call. Happier. We were all starting to wonder if he was human. The comment made Zara laugh, but it also made her think. How lonely must Marcus have been if his own employees noticed such a change in him? That afternoon they had lunch at a small restaurant near his office. It was nothing fancy, just good food and comfortable atmosphere, but Marcus seemed to enjoy the simplicity of it. I usually eat at my desk, he admitted. Or at those business lunches where you spend more time talking deals than actually eating. That sounds awful, Zara said. Food should be enjoyed, not just consumed for fuel. I'm beginning to realize there are a lot of things I've forgotten how to enjoy. As they walked back to his office, Marcus stopped suddenly in front of a small art gallery. Would you like to look? He asked. I know you love art. The gallery was showing contemporary paintings, and Zara found herself studying each piece with fascination. Marcus watched her more than he looked at the artwork, seeming genuinely interested in her reactions. What do you think of that one? He asked, pointing to an abstract piece with bold splashes of color. It's angry, she said immediately, but also hopeful. See how the dark colors are being pushed out by the brighter ones? It's like watching someone fight their way out of sadness. Marcus stared at the painting for a long moment. I never would have seen that. To me it just looks like shapes and colors. Art is supposed to make you feel something, Zara explained. It doesn't matter if what you feel is what the artist intended. What matters is that it touches something inside you. Show me, he said. Teach me how to see what you see. They spent the next hour moving through the gallery with Zara explaining not what each painting meant, but how it made her feel. Marcus listened intently, asking questions and gradually beginning to offer his own observations. By the end, he was actually engaging with the art instead of just looking at it. That was educational, he said as they left the gallery. Thank you. Thank you for wanting to learn. That evening, over dinner, Marcus seemed more talkative than usual. I've been thinking about what you said, he told her. About learning to see beauty again. I realized today that I've been so focused on the destination that I forgot to notice the journey. What do you mean? I'm always thinking about the next deal, the next goal, the next problem to solve. I never just exist in the moment. It's not too late to change that, she said gently. I hope not. After dinner, instead of retreating to his study as he usually did, Marcus suggested they sit in the garden. It was a warm evening, and the air was filled with the scent of jasmine from the vine that climbed the garden wall. Tell me about your family, he said as they sat on the wooden bench near the pond. I want to know more about the people who raised someone like you. So Zara told him about her parents, her father's quiet strength and her mother's fierce determination to keep the family together despite their financial struggles. She told him about Keisha's dreams of becoming a teacher, and about Sunday dinners when they would all crowd around their tiny kitchen table and talk over each other in their eagerness to share their weeks. It sounds wonderful, Marcus said, and there was something wistful in his voice. What was your family like? Marcus was quiet for so long that Zara thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful and controlled. Complicated. My father built his business from nothing, and he expected me to be worthy of that legacy. My mother was distant. Beautiful and elegant, but not particularly warm. I spent most of my childhood with nannies and tutors. That sounds lonely. It was. But it taught me to be self-sufficient. Maybe too self-sufficient, Zara said softly. Marcus looked at her with surprise. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you learned to rely only on yourself so well that you forgot how good it feels to let other people care about you. And you care about me? The question came out quietly, almost hesitantly. Zara's heart began to race. This felt like dangerous territory, but she couldn't bring herself to lie. Yes, I do. Marcus didn't respond immediately, but she saw something shift in his expression. He reached over and took her hand, threading their fingers together. It was the first time he had touched her since their wedding day, and the contact sent warmth shooting up her arm. I care about you too, he said finally. More than I expected to. More than I thought I was capable of. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands linked, watching the fish move lazily through the pond. Zara felt like they had crossed some invisible line tonight, moved from being polite strangers to something deeper and more real. I should probably get some work done, Marcus said eventually, though he made no move to let go of her hand. Of course, she said, though she was disappointed that the moment was ending. He stood up, but instead of walking away, he leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. It was a soft, sweet gesture that somehow felt more intimate than any passionate kiss could have. Good night, Zara. Good night. As she watched him walk back to the house, Zara touched the spot where his lips had been. Something was definitely changing between them, something that made her both hopeful and terrified. Because caring about Marcus was one thing, but falling in love with him was something else entirely. And she was very much afraid that she was already halfway there. The next few weeks brought a series of small changes that transformed the atmosphere in the house. Marcus began working from home more often, setting up his laptop in the library where Zara liked to paint. They would spend hours in comfortable silence, him handling business calls and her working on her art. Sometimes she would catch him watching her work, and he would smile before returning his attention to his computer. You're very peaceful to watch, he told her one afternoon. It's calming. I'm glad I don't distract you from your work. You do distract me, he said with a smile. But in a good way. Their dinner conversations had evolved too. Instead of careful small talk, they began sharing more personal stories. Marcus told her about his college years, about the pressure he had felt to live up to his father's expectations. Zara shared her dreams of traveling, of maybe someday having a gallery show her work. Why someday? Marcus asked. Why not now? Because I'm not ready. I'm not good enough yet. I disagree. But even if that were true, how will you get good enough if you don't try? It was a fair point, but the idea of showing her work to strangers still terrified her. One evening Marcus came home with a surprise. I have something for you, he said, producing an envelope from his briefcase. Inside were 2 plane tickets to Paris. Marcus, I can't accept these, she said, though her heart was racing with excitement. It's not just for you. It's for both of us. I have some business there next month and I thought, maybe you'd like to come with me. See some real art for a change. You want me to come with you? On a business trip? I want you to come with me everywhere, he said, then seemed surprised by his own words. I mean if you want to. No pressure. The trip to Paris was everything Zara had dreamed it would be. Marcus handled his business meetings in the mornings, and they spent the afternoons exploring the city together. They visited the Louvre, where Zara stood in front of famous paintings she had only seen in books, tears streaming down her face. It's overwhelming, she explained to Marcus, who was watching her with a concerned expression. To see something so beautiful that it was created hundreds of years ago, and it's still here, still moving people. I think I'm beginning to understand, he said softly. They walked along the Seine as the sun set, sharing crepes from a street vendor and talking about everything and nothing. Marcus seemed different here, away from his office and his responsibilities. He was more relaxed, more playful. When it started to rain, he grabbed her hand and they ran laughing through the streets, ducking into a small cafe where they dried off and drank wine while watching the storm through the windows. Thank you for bringing me here, Zara said as they sat close together on the small cafe couch. This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Thank you for seeing it with me, Marcus replied. I've been to Paris a dozen times for business, but I never really saw it until now. That night, in their hotel room, which had only one bed, though Marcus had immediately offered to sleep on the couch, they sat talking until nearly dawn. Marcus told her about his fears, about not being good enough, about ending up like his father who had worked himself to death. Zara shared her own worries about losing herself in this new life, about whether she would ever be more than just a convenient wife. You're not convenient, Marcus said firmly. You're essential. I don't know how I lived without you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Zara felt her heart pound as Marcus moved closer to her on the bed where they had been sitting. Zara, he said softly, reaching up to touch her face. I need to tell you something. What? I'm falling in love with you. I know this wasn't supposed to be that kind of marriage, but I can't help it. You've changed everything for me." Before she could respond, he leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, but when she kissed him back, it deepened into something more passionate. All the careful distance they had maintained over the past months melted away as they held each other close. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "I've been so scared to say it." "Why scared?" "Because I didn't want to care about someone who might never care about me the same way." "I care about you more than I've ever cared about anything," he said, resting his forehead against hers. "You saved me, Zara. I was so empty before you came into my life." They made love that night with a tenderness that surprised them both. It was nothing like the awkward encounter Zara had feared it might be. Instead, it felt like the natural culmination of all the small moments of connection they had shared over the past months. Marcus was gentle and patient, and when she told him it was her first time, he held her even closer. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice husky with emotion. "I'm sure. I want this. I want you." Afterward, they lay tangled together in the soft hotel sheets, talking and laughing and stealing kisses until the sun came up. Zara had never felt so happy, so complete. "What happens when we go home?" she asked as they prepared for their flight back to the States. "Everything changes," Marcus said, taking her hand. "We stop pretending this is just an arrangement. We start building a real marriage." "I'd like that." "So would I." On the plane home, Zara reflected on how much had changed since their wedding day. The stranger she had married had become the man she loved, and somehow, miraculously, he loved her too. It felt too good to be true, like a fairy tale that might disappear if she examined it too closely. But when Marcus squeezed her hand as the plane descended toward home, she realized that sometimes fairy tales did come true. Sometimes arranged marriages turned into love stories. Sometimes two people who seemed completely wrong for each other turned out to be exactly what the other needed. As they drove through the gates of their home, not his home, their home, Zara felt a sense of excitement about their future that she had never dared to hope for. They had found love in the most unexpected place, and now they had the rest of their lives to discover just how deep that love could grow. The house felt different when they returned from Paris. It was still the same beautiful colonial with its warm yellow lights and welcoming gardens, but now it truly felt like home. Marcus no longer retreated to his study after dinner, and Zara no longer spent her evenings alone in the blue bedroom. Instead, they curled up together on the couch in the living room, talking and reading and simply enjoying each other's company. Mrs. Chin noticed the change immediately. "You two look happy," she said with a knowing smile as she served them breakfast their first morning back. "We are," Marcus said, reaching over to take Zara's hand. The simple gesture still sent warmth through her entire body. "Good," Mrs. Chin said with satisfaction. "This house needs more happiness." Over the next few weeks, they began to truly merge their lives. Zara moved her things into Marcus's bedroom, their bedroom, and they started making decisions together about everything from what to have for dinner to how to redecorate the guest room. Marcus even cleared out a corner of his study to make space for Zara's easel, saying he liked having her nearby while he worked. "Don't you find it distracting?" she asked as she set up her paints. "The opposite, actually. You inspire me." Their relationship deepened in ways that surprised them both. Marcus began to let his guard down completely, sharing fears and dreams he had never told anyone. He admitted that he sometimes felt like he was pretending to be someone he wasn't, playing the role of the successful businessman while inside he still felt like the lonely child who had never been quite good enough for his parents. "You are good enough," Zara told him one night as they lay in bed together. "You're kind and intelligent and you care about people even when you try to hide it." "How do you always know exactly what to say?" he asked, pulling her closer. "Because I love you. And when you love someone you see them clearly." Marcus started making changes at work too. He delegated more responsibilities to his team and began turning down clients whose values didn't align with his own. He was more patient in meetings, more willing to listen to different perspectives. His employees noticed the difference. "Whatever happened to you in Paris, keep it up," Jennifer told him with a grin. "You're actually fun to work for now." Meanwhile, Zara was growing more confident in her art. Encouraged by Marcus's faith in her abilities, she began experimenting with new techniques and bolder subjects. She painted portraits of Mrs. Chen working in the garden, cityscapes inspired by their trip to Paris, and abstract pieces that captured the emotions she was too shy to express in words. "I think you should have a show," Marcus said one evening as he looked at her latest painting, a vibrant piece that seemed to dance with joy and color. "I'm not ready for that." "When will you be ready? What would it take?" Zara considered the question. "I'd need at least 20 finished pieces." And they'd have to be good, really good. How many do you have now? 12 that I'm happy with. So 8 more. That's doable. Marcus's confidence in her was both inspiring and terrifying. He believed in her talent more than she believed in it herself. A month later, Marcus came home with news that changed everything. Remember that family business I was trying to acquire? The manufacturing company? Of course. Did they accept your proposal? They did. But more than that, they asked me to help them set up a foundation to support local artists. They want to give back to the community, and they remembered how passionate you were about art when we met them. Zara stared at him in amazement. They want to support artists? They want to support you. They're offering to sponsor your first gallery show. The news was overwhelming. Zara had been dreaming of a gallery show for years, but she had always imagined it happening far in the future, after she had somehow proven herself worthy. The idea that it could happen now, sponsored by people she had only met once, seemed impossible. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Marcus encouraged. You're ready for this, Zara. I know you are. That night, Zara called her family to share the news. Her parents were ecstatic, and Keisha squealed so loudly that Zara had to hold the phone away from her ear. This is incredible, Keisha said. My sister, the famous artist. I'm not famous yet, Zara laughed. And I might never be. This could be a complete disaster. It won't be, Marcus said when she shared her fears with him later. Your work is beautiful. People are going to love it. How can you be so sure? Because I love it. And I love you. And I have excellent taste in both art and women. The next few months were a whirlwind of preparation. Zara worked feverishly to complete her collection, often painting late into the night while Marcus worked quietly beside her. When she got frustrated or discouraged, he would remind her of how talented she was, how proud he was of her dedication. I never had anyone believe in me like this before, she told him one night as they took a break from their respective work. I never had anyone to believe in before, he replied. It's one of my favorite things about being married to you. The gallery show was scheduled for a Friday evening in November. As the date approached, Zara grew more nervous, but Marcus remained calm and confident. What if no one comes? She worried. People will come. And if they don't, I'll buy every single painting myself. You can't buy your own wife's paintings. Watch me. The night before the show, Zara couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned beside Marcus, running through everything that could go wrong. Talk to me, Marcus said softly in the darkness. What are you thinking about? What if I've made a mistake? What if my work isn't good enough? What if people hate it? Marcus turned on the bedside lamp and looked at her seriously. Do you remember what you told me about art? That it's supposed to make you feel something? Yes. Your art makes me feel hope. Makes me feel joy. It makes me see beauty in places I never noticed before. If it can do that for one person, it can do it for others. But what if dash? No more what ifs, Marcus said, kissing her gently. Tomorrow night, you're going to show the world what I already know, that you're incredibly talented and that your art has the power to change people. As Zara finally drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, she tried to hold on to his confidence, to believe in herself the way he believed in her. Tomorrow would be the biggest night of her life, and whatever happened, she knew she wouldn't be facing it alone. The morning of the gallery show, Zara woke up with butterflies performing acrobatics in her stomach. Marcus was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with coffee and toast he had brought up from the kitchen. Breakfast in bed for the artist, he said with a smile. I don't think I can eat anything. Just a little bit. You'll need your energy for tonight. As Zara nibbled on the toast, Marcus sat beside her and took her hand. I have something for you, he said, producing a small wrapped box. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a small paintbrush pendant. Marcus, it's beautiful, she breathed. I had it made specially for you. I thought you could wear it tonight for luck. I love it. But I love you more. I love you too. And tonight, everyone is going to see what I see when I look at your art, pure magic. The gallery was a beautiful space downtown, with white walls and perfect lighting that made every painting glow. Zara arrived early to see her work displayed professionally for the first time. Seeing her paintings hanging in a real gallery with proper frames and little cards bearing her name, made her feel both proud and terrified. They look amazing, said Susan, the gallery owner. You should be very excited about tonight. Zara's family arrived first, her parents looking slightly overwhelmed by the elegant gallery space but beaming with pride. Keisha wore her best dress and couldn't stop taking pictures of everything. I can't believe my sister did all this, she kept saying to anyone who would listen. Marcus had invited several of his business associates, wanting to support Zara but also hoping to attract potential buyers. The manufacturing family whose foundation was sponsoring the show arrived with their own group of friends and supporters. As the evening began, people started to fill the gallery. Zara stood near the entrance, greeting guests and trying not to panic. Marcus stayed close beside her, introducing her to people and speaking about her work with genuine enthusiasm. "This is my wife Zara. She's incredibly talented, as you can see." The first hour passed in a blur of handshakes and compliments. People seemed genuinely interested in her work, asking questions about her process and inspiration. Several pieces had little red dots next to them, indicating they had been sold. "People are buying my paintings," Zara whispered to Marcus in amazement. "Of course they are. I told you they would." But the real surprise came when a well-dressed woman approached her with a business card. "Miss Coleman? I'm Rachel Morgan from the Contemporary Arts Foundation. I've been watching the response to your work tonight, and I'm very impressed. Would you be interested in discussing a larger exhibition at our main gallery downtown?" Zara's mouth fell open. The Contemporary Arts Foundation was one of the most prestigious art organizations in the city. Yes, of course I'd be interested." "Wonderful. I'll call you next week to set up a meeting." As the woman walked away, Zara grabbed Marcus's arm. "Did that really just happen?" "It did. And you deserve every bit of it." The evening continued to exceed all of Zara's expectations. By the end of the night, nearly half of her paintings had sold, and she had been approached by 2 other gallery owners interested in her work. The local art critic had spent 20 minutes discussing her use of color and light, and several people had asked about commissioning pieces. "This is incredible," her mother said, tears in her eyes. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart." "I can't believe this is real," Zara said, looking around the gallery at all the people admiring her work. As the evening wound down and the last guests departed, Zara found herself alone in the gallery with Marcus. They walked slowly around the space, looking at her paintings in the soft evening light. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked. "Like I'm dreaming. Like I might wake up any minute and find out none of this happened." "It's real," he assured her, pulling her into his arms. "You did this. Your talent, your hard work, your courage, it all led to this moment. I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." "That's what love is," Marcus said softly. "Seeing someone's potential even when they can't see it themselves." As they drove home that night, Zara reflected on how much her life had changed. A year ago, she had been working at a coffee shop, painting in her spare time and dreaming of someday being a real artist. Now she was married to a man she loved deeply, had just had her first successful gallery show, and was being courted by prestigious galleries. "Do you ever think about how different things would be if we hadn't gotten married?" she asked Marcus. "Every day," he said. "And every day I'm grateful that we did. Even though it started as an arrangement, it turned into the best thing that ever happened to me." "For me too." When they got home, Mrs. Chen was waiting with champagne and a cake she had made to celebrate. "I'm so proud of both of you," she said, raising her glass. "You found each other and now you're finding yourselves." Later that night, as they lay in bed together, Zara thought about how perfect everything seemed. She had a successful art career beginning to bloom, a husband who loved and supported her completely, and a future full of possibilities. "Marcus," she said softly. "Do you think we'll always be this happy?" "I think we'll have challenges like every couple does, but I think we'll face them together. And yes, I think we'll always be this happy. Because we have something real, something worth protecting. I love you. I love you too. More than I ever thought possible." As Zara drifted off to sleep, she smiled thinking about the phone call she would make to Rachel Morgan next week, about the new paintings she wanted to create, about the life she and Marcus were building together. Everything felt perfect, like all the pieces of her life had finally fallen into place. But sometimes, when everything seems too good to be true, the universe has a way of reminding you that happiness is fragile, and that the people we love most can surprise us in ways we never saw coming. 3 months after the gallery show, Zara's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. Her art was selling consistently, she had been featured in 2 art magazines, and the Contemporary Arts Foundation had offered her a solo exhibition for the following spring. She and Marcus had settled into a rhythm of domestic happiness that felt natural and right. Which is why the phone call on a Tuesday morning came as such a shock. Zara was in the garden, sketching ideas for new paintings, when Marcus's phone rang. She could hear him talking in his study, his voice growing increasingly tense. When he emerged 20 minutes later, his face was pale. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. Marcus sat down heavily beside her on the garden bench. That was my lawyer. There's been a development with the business. What kind of development? It's complicated. But the short version is that there's been an investigation into some of my past deals. The government thinks I may have engaged in some questionable practices. Zara's heart began to race. What does that mean? It means I might be facing charges. It means my assets could be frozen while they investigate. It means... He stopped and took her hand. It means our life together might be about to change dramatically. Are you guilty of what they're accusing you of? No, Marcus said firmly. But that doesn't mean I won't be charged anyway. And even if I'm eventually cleared, the legal process could take years. We could lose everything. Zara felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. Everything? The house, the business, most of our money. I'm so sorry, Zara. I never thought something like this could happen. That afternoon, Marcus met with his legal team while Zara tried to process what this might mean for their future. She called her sister, needing someone to talk to. Oh my God, Keisha said when Zara explained the situation. What are you going to do? I don't know. Marcus says we might lose everything. But you'll be okay, right? I mean, you and Marcus will get through this together? I hope so. But Keisha, what if people think I only married him for his money? What if they think I'm just going to leave him now that he might lose everything? The people who matter know better than that. And Marcus knows better than that, right? But as the days passed, Zara began to worry that Marcus wasn't so sure. He became withdrawn and distant, spending long hours with his lawyers and barely speaking to her when he was home. When she tried to comfort him or discuss their situation, he brushed her off. You don't need to worry about this, he said one evening when she asked about the investigation. I'll handle it. I'm your wife. We're supposed to handle things together. Are we? The question came out sharper than he probably intended. Or are you going to realize that you made a mistake marrying someone who might end up in prison? Marcus, how can you say that? I love you. You love the life I gave you. The house, the security, the opportunities. What happens when all of that disappears? Zara felt like he had slapped her. You think that's why I'm with you? For your money? I don't know, he said quietly. I hope not. But people change when everything falls apart. The conversation ended with both of them hurt and angry, and for the first time since their wedding night, Marcus slept in the guest room. Over the next week, the distance between them grew wider. Marcus worked constantly, and when he was home, he was cold and formal, more like the stranger she had married than the man she had fallen in love with. Zara tried to be patient, understanding that he was under enormous stress, but his behavior was breaking her heart. The breaking point came when Zara overheard a phone conversation between Marcus and his lawyer. Yes, I understand the prenup is ironclad, Marcus was saying. If we divorce, she gets nothing. That should protect whatever assets we manage to keep. Zara felt sick. Was Marcus planning to divorce her to protect his money? Had he been thinking about their prenuptial agreement this whole time? That night, she confronted him in his study. Are you planning to divorce me? She asked directly. Marcus looked up from his papers with surprise. What? I heard you talking to your lawyer about the prenup. Are you going to leave me to protect your assets? No, Zara, that's not. He was just explaining our legal position. I'm not planning anything. But you've thought about it. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I've thought about whether you might want to divorce me. To get out before things get worse. And you'd let me go? Just like that. I'd want you to be happy. If staying with me means living in poverty or dealing with scandal, maybe you'd be better off without me. Don't I get a say in that decision? Of course you do. But Zara, you have to understand, I might lose everything. We might have to sell the house, downsize completely. Your art career could suffer if people associate you with my legal troubles. I can't ask you to sacrifice your future for me. Zara stared at him, realizing that despite everything they had shared, Marcus still didn't truly understand her love for him. You still think I married you for your money? She said quietly. I think you married me because your family needed help and I provided that help. Now that your art career is taking off, you don't need me anymore. You're right, Zara said, and Marcus's face fell. I don't need you anymore. I don't need your money or your house or your connections. Marcus looked like she had just confirmed his worst fears. But I want you, she continued. I want you when you're rich and I want you when you're poor. I want you when you're successful and I want you when you're struggling. I want you because you're kind and intelligent and because you see the best in people even when they can't see it in themselves. I want you because you taught me to believe in myself and because you make me laugh and because you hold me when I'm scared. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. I want you because I love you, Marcus. Not the businessman, not the millionaire, not the man who can give me things. I love you, the person who hums when he thinks no one is listening and who saves me the last bite of dessert and who believes in my art more than I do. Zara? He whispered. So if you want to divorce me to protect your assets, then do it. But don't do it because you think I don't love you enough to stay. Because I will stay through anything, investigations and trials and poverty and whatever else comes our way. That's what love means. That's what marriage means. Marcus stood up from his desk and crossed to where she was standing. He cupped her face in his hands, tears streaming down his cheeks. I'm so sorry, he said. I was so scared of losing you that I started pushing you away first. I forgot that you're not like other people. I forgot that your love isn't conditional. It's not, she confirmed. It never will be. They held each other tightly, both crying and laughing at the same time. What happens now? Zara asked. Now we face this together. Whatever comes, we handle it as a team. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll never doubt my love for you again. No matter what happens. I promise. And Zara? I love you too. Not because you're beautiful or talented or because you saved me from loneliness. I love you because you're you, brave and kind and strong enough to stand by someone even when it might cost you everything. 6 months later, the investigation concluded with Marcus being completely cleared of all charges. It turned out that a disgruntled former employee had made false accusations, hoping to damage Marcus's reputation. But even if things had gone differently, Zara knew they would have been okay. Because they had learned something important about their marriage, that real love isn't about what you can give each other, but about what you're willing to sacrifice for each other. As they stood in their garden on a warm spring evening, watching the sun set behind the trees, Zara reflected on their journey from strangers to lovers to true partners. Do you ever regret it? Marcus asked as if reading her thoughts. The arranged marriage, all the uncertainty, everything we've been through? Never, Zara said without hesitation. Because it led me to you. And you're worth any amount of uncertainty. Even if we had lost everything? Especially then. Because that's when I would have known for sure that what we have is real. Marcus kissed her then, soft and sweet under the stars that were just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. They had started as strangers bound by necessity, but they had become something beautiful, two people who had chosen to love each other through everything life could throw at them. And that, Zara thought as she kissed her husband back, was the most romantic thing of all.